Welcome back to Manhwa Heartbeats. Today, we'll be recapping a manhwa called Emily's Temptation Labyrinth. Don't forget to subscribe, it helps us a lot. Enjoy. A man kneels in front of Emilone, his voice trembling as he calls her a saint. He begs for her help, saying he'll do anything if she gives him the chance to serve her. His eyes are full of desperation, and he promises to offer anything he can in exchange for this one opportunity. Suddenly, Emilone's mind drifts to a memory from months ago. It was right after her 24th birthday when everything changed. One day, she wakes up and realizes she's no longer in her world. Confusion hits her as she looks at herself. Her hair color is different, her clothes completely unfamiliar. As she tries to make sense of it all, she notices men kneeling before her, their eyes filled with reverence. They call her God's blessing. That's how she finds out she's been brought to another dimension. In this strange new world, she becomes a saint. But adjusting to this role isn't easy. She used to live her life as an actress, and now she's expected to be a symbol of holiness. The pressure is overwhelming, and the weight of expectations weighs her down every day. After months of struggling, half a year of trial and error, Emilone finally gains recognition from the nobility. They accept her as a saint, and with that title comes freedom. She is now able to come and go from the imperial palace as she pleases. Today, she arrives earlier than expected and decides to take a walk through the palace gardens to clear her mind. As she strolls through the quiet paths, Emilone spots a familiar figure in the distance, a lady standing gracefully, speaking with a young man. Emilone recognizes the woman immediately. It's Princess Ronella, known far and wide for her beauty and kind heart. The man beside her is likely a young marquis from some noble family. Watching them, Emilone can't help but think that if this world were a novel, Princess Ronella would undoubtedly be the heroine. She has all the qualities, beauty, charm, and a natural grace that draws people in. Emilone used to feel jealous of her. After all, many of the great men she's met are all enchanted by the princess. But looking back now, Emilone feels nothing but relief. It's a good thing she didn't fall for anyone surrounding Ronella. A heroine adored by all, a male lead devoted to her, and a saint who would have been heartbroken over the male lead's love. Emilone smiles to herself at the thought, grateful she didn't get swept up in that story. Emilone could have easily found herself going down the path of the villainess, but becoming a saint changed everything. There was so much she had to learn and adapt to, and most of her time is spent studying. She's so busy that she doesn't even have time to think about men. Besides, the difference in how the handsome men treat her compared to Princess Ronella is clear as day. Their affection is only for the princess, and since it's not meant for her, Emilone doesn't bother desiring it. As she walks through the garden, she overhears Princess Ronella speaking with the young marquis. He tells her that whatever she wants, she'll get, and Ronella thanks him sweetly, adding that all the expenses will be covered by the duke's estate. He nods and agrees, then hands her a gift. But Ronella just smiles and politely refuses, saying it's not necessary. They need to handle things like a proper transaction. The marquis looks flustered, awkwardly replying, "Oh." Ronella seems so happy, even though she has an upcoming appointment with the crown prince. She doesn't seem to want to leave his side. She calls him Lord Etwa, and the marquis blushes bright red. Emilone watches from a distance, a little surprised by what she sees. Are they flirting? It certainly looks like it. She's even more shocked when Princess Ronella flashes a sly grin. Is her sweet, innocent demeanor just an act? Emilone wonders if there's more to Ronella than meets the eye. This could get interesting. A little later, Emilone finds herself face to face with the crown prince, Cassandra Wesley. When she greets him, he doesn't bother returning the greeting, just dryly tells her to sit. She takes her seat, thinking to herself how rude he is. Sure, he's the crown prince, but that doesn't mean he has to act like he's above everyone else. Prince Casidra looks at her and says he called her here because there's something he needs to discuss. Emilone nods, telling him to go ahead. As he talks, she can't help but think what a waste of a handsome face he is. He finally gets to the point and asks if she knows about the upcoming hunting tournament the Imperial Palace is hosting. They need her help for the reception afterward. Emilone mentally rolls her eyes, wondering who even asked for this. Prince Casidra then adds that he hopes she can attend, because Ronella really wants her to be there. Emilone asks Casidra why they want her at the tournament. He pauses for a moment and says it's just a guess, but the temple recently reported a sudden increase in the number of demons. Since the tournament is set in a large forest, there's a chance demons might show up. He explains that Ronella seems to want Emilone to accompany him for his safety, using the reception as a cover. Emilone nods, saying she understands, but inside, she's curious. Does Ronella really care that much about Casidra? She was just flirting with another man, smiling sweetly. What is she up to? Casidra continues, saying he knows Emilone doesn't attend parties often, but out of respect for Princess Ronella's wishes, he asks if she would consider attending. Emilone notices the way he speaks. Did the prince just show a bit of emotion? She agrees anyway, and he nods, saying that's all for now. He adds that he has an appointment with the princess soon, so she can leave. As Emilone stands, she wonders about Ronella. Is she really meeting the crown prince right, after spending time with the young lord of the Marquis family? What's going on with her? Emilone bids the prince farewell, saying she'll see him next time, but in her mind, she thinks it's a shame she won't get to sit back and watch this little harem drama unfold. As she steps outside, she's met with another familiar face, Lord Aelio Rastuyan, the sage of the Wesley Empire. Aelio greets Emilone, saying it's the first time he's seen her at the Imperial Palace. She smiles and says it's nice to see him too, then casually asks where he's headed. Aelio replies that Princess Ronella called for him. Emilone, feeling playful, decides to stir things up a bit. She tells him that the princess also has plans with the crown prince today. She wonders what's really going on. Aelio looks shocked. I thought she only called for me, he says, clearly confused. Emilone wonders if poor Aelio just got stood up. She feels a little sorry for him, but at the same time, things are starting to make sense. The image of Princess Ronella being loved by everyone, it's all an act, but a stage crafted with careful pretending, showing sweetness to everyone, is much more interesting than genuine charm, isn't it? Later, as Emilone is getting ready for bed, her thoughts drift back to the hunting tournament. She wonders if the princess truly cares about these men, or if she's plotting something. Just as she's about to relax, a sudden throbbing pain hits her, and she collapses onto the bed. A vision flashes before her eyes. It's a prophecy from God. A demon will appear at the hunting tournament. At the party, one man mentions that 5 demons appeared at Count Sartoon's estate, and the other seems shocked, worried about the Count and Countess. The first man reassures him that they were fine, explaining how they had prepared in advance using bait from the slums, which made it easier for the knights to deal with the demons. Emilone feels a wave of disgust. Innocent people had died, and yet these men are praising the strategy, as if it were a brilliant solution. They continue, admiring how efficiently the demon attack was handled, even viewing the loss of lives as beneficial. Emilone can't believe how casually they speak about it, as though sacrificing people is an acceptable way to handle things. She wonders what kind of world she's really in, one where cruelty is considered wisdom, and somehow, she's been placed in the role of saint, connected to these terrible decisions. When Emilone wakes up, she reflects on the prophecy that appeared in her dreams. It's not the first time the prophecy has warned of demons. She knows they are creatures of chaos, and only divine power can truly harm them, which is why the temple oversees their extermination. The problem is, the prophecies are vague. They don't reveal how many demons will come, or how strong they might be, leaving her with more questions than answers. Low-level demons are usually handled by ordinary knights, since they can overpower them with sheer numbers. But for mid-level or stronger demons, divine power has to be injected directly into their bodies to defeat them, which raises the risk significantly. Emilone wonders if she should announce the prophecy and cancel the tournament. But no, if she does that, they'll likely use people as bait again, and she can't let that disaster repeat itself. The prophecy alone won't be enough to stop the event, so she figures she'll wait and see. Being invited to the hunting tournament might be a stroke of luck. Just as she's lost in thought, she hears a knock at the door. A voice calls out that Ronella has returned home. Emilone realizes it's already time for dinner. She tells him to wait a moment and then opens the door. Ronella greets her politely, and she welcomes him with a smile, saying she thought he would be back late since he had gone out. He reminds her that she gave him permission to be out until dinner and jokes that he can't disobey her orders. Emilone chuckles to herself. It wasn't really an order, but is always so diligent. She suggests they head to the dining room, and he agrees. As they walk, Ronella glances at Emilone, and she asks if something is wrong. He says no, but she presses, curious about why he seems so anxious when he asked for permission to go out earlier. He explains that Princess Ronella summoned him, and suggested that both he and the sage attend the hunting tournament. Emilone feels relieved. It wasn't anything serious, after all. She admits she was worried because he looked tense, and he replies that the princess has never called for him before, so maybe he was nervous without realizing it. Emilone thinks to herself, impressed that Ronella has even managed to charm the high priest. Out loud, she casually mentions that she'll be at the tournament as well. Ronella is surprised and asks what she means. She wonders quietly who will win the princess's heart in the end. A maid interrupts, informing Emilone that Princess Ronella has arrived. Surprised, she asks why the princess is here, and the maid explains that Ronella requested an audience with the saint. Emilone instructs the maid to escort the princess to the parlor and to prepare some tea. Soon, Princess Ronella walks in, greeting Emilone warmly and saying it's been a while. The princess quickly apologizes for taking up her time with this unexpected visit, explaining that she has something important to share. Emilone asks if it's a private matter, suggesting that Ronella could step out if needed, but the princess, looking a bit flustered, says it's a difficult story to tell, and that she'd feel much more comfortable if Ronella stayed by her side. Emilone, with a small smile, agrees and tells Ronella to stand with the princess. Princess Ronella thanks Ronella for the tissues, wiping her eyes, as she explains that scary things have been happening to her lately, which is why she keeps tearing up. She says that someone has started threatening her. Emilone, concerned, asks what she means. The princess tells her that she recently attended Lady Surden's tea party, and afterwards, her escort knights were found dead. On top of that, strange things have been happening. Her belongings go missing, or she wakes up in a different room. She questioned the servants, but it led nowhere. Emilone wonders to herself if Ronella is acting or if there's some truth to it. The princess continues, saying she's now being protected more thoroughly than before, and her father is keeping a close eye on things, but the culprit still hasn't been caught. She pleads for Emilone's help. Emilone can't help but think it's suspicious timing. Just when she receives a prophecy about demons, Ronella starts talking about strange events. But she agrees, asking what she can do to help. Princess Ronella is surprised and asks if she really means it. Emilone nods and offers to take charge of her protection and investigate the culprit. But the princess shakes her head, saying her father is already handling the investigation. She just needs Emilone's help with protection, and that will be enough. Emilone tells Princess Ronella that she will visit the Duke's residence to protect her, and will stay there starting tomorrow until the hunting tournament. The princess thanks Emilone warmly, and Emilone asks Ronella to see her off. As Emilone watches the princess smile, she thinks to herself that she's curious to see how Ronella's acting skills will play out. When Emilone arrives at the Duke's house, Princess Ronella greets her with appreciation. Duke Nestro steps in, reminding the princess that this is not the proper way to greet a saint. The Duchess also comes forward to greet Emilone. The princess apologizes, saying she got a bit too excited. Emilone responds by wishing them God's blessing and expresses her surprise that both Duke and Duchess came out to meet her. The Duke acknowledges that she has come a long way to ensure Ronella's safety, while the Duchess tells Emilone to make herself comfortable. The princess then invites Emilone inside, promising to take very good care of her while she is there. Saint Emilone sits down for lunch with Princess Ronella, and thinks about how the meal is turning out to be quite enjoyable. Despite the fact that she knows the princess is scheming, the lunch isn't too bad. Emilone notes that it's a bit less lively without any men around, which was something she was looking forward to. She figures she'll probably have more fun next time, when she's with one of the princess's suitors. As they eat, Princess Ronella suddenly asks Emilone why she seems so lively and full of energy. Emilone is taken aback by the question and wonders why the princess is curious about her mood. The atmosphere at the table feels a little strange, and Emilone can't quite figure out why. Princess Ronella notices Emilone's confusion and quickly adds that she didn't mean to say anything odd. She's simply very interested in Emilone, because she's so different from the previous saints she has met. Emilone thinks to herself that she has heard this kind of comment quite a few times before, but she's still trying to understand what it all means. When Emilone first came to this world, she was treated well as the saint, but the temple itself was not in great shape. Even though the people working there had divine power and were very kind-hearted, they were too soft and let others take advantage of them. They accepted things unfairly and just moved on. The daily life for the priests was full of poverty and self-denial, which was different from what Emilone had expected. She has been working hard to improve the temple system since she arrived. During one of their meetings, Emilone mentions that she has answered this question several times before, thinking it was well known. However, she realizes now that it seems some people still don't understand. Princess Ronella comments on how she has mentioned the difficulties in maintaining the temple. She adds that the reason Emilone was chosen from outside was because God was warning about the temple's grim future. Emilone agrees with this explanation. The princess then says that despite the temple's wealth, it still seems like something is missing. Emilone acknowledges that while there is still some dissatisfaction, she believes that with continued effort, everything will eventually get better. Emilone asks if today is the last day she needs to guard the princess. Ronella thanks her, and she replies that she hasn't seen anyone suspicious. He then asks about the Duke's investigation, and Emilone says she hasn't heard any new updates directly. From the atmosphere, it seems like there hasn't been much progress. Emilone starts to feel uneasy, especially since the murder case is still unresolved, and thinks that she should at least send a priest to help with the investigation. Just then, a carriage arrives. The Crown Prince, Casidra, steps out of the carriage and is greeted warmly. Emilone thinks to herself that it's definitely the Crown Prince's carriage. Following him, Princess Ronella also arrives. The people watching are surprised and wonder if the rumors are true. Another carriage pulls up, and Emilone is surprised when she sees it. Princess Ronella turns around and thanks the man who gets out of this second carriage. His name is Enesis. Emilone notices that the man with Princess Ronella must be Duke Enesis Cassian. She remembers that he is the princess's childhood friend and sees from his gaze that he seems to be in love with her. With Sage Alio also here, that makes 4 of the princess's close supporters gathered today. Emilone thinks she shouldn't let her guard down, but it will be interesting to observe. Princess Ronella notices Emilone and greets her. People watching the event ask if that is Saint Emilone, the priestess with the pink hair. They thought she had withdrawn from social life, so they're surprised to see her close to the princess. Emilone thinks the princess really knows how to draw attention, and returns the greeting. Anicap asks Princess Ronella for a handkerchief. She tells him she brought one and explains that, in the Empire, it's a tradition for a knight's family, or loved one to give them a handkerchief when they go into battle. The handkerchief is meant to guide the god of victory to the knight's side. Princess Ronella tells Anicap she embroidered it with his favorite purple thread and asks if he likes it. He asks her to tie it for him, and she says he can always ask her to tie it around his wrist. He replies he wants to make sure he doesn't lose it. Emilone notes that there is also a handkerchief tied to the crown prince's sword. Prince Casidra tells Anicap that it's time to go. Anicap says he understands, and Ronella wishes them good luck, telling Anicap not to overdo it. Emilone hopes they both return safely, and they thank her for her blessings. Princess Ronella tells a lady that her brooch is really beautiful. The lady thanks her and explains that her father recently struck a new trade agreement with the Kingdom of Beaumont, and they sent the brooch as a gift. Emilone is standing and watching when a guard rushes up to her. She tells him to take a moment to catch his breath and explain what's happening calmly. The guard says that Prince Casidra has been attacked by a demon. Everyone starts talking in shock about the demon attack, and asks if the guard is really talking about Prince Casidra. Emilone says they were trying to avoid any victims. The guard apologizes and explains that the signal didn't go off. Emilone tells him she's not blaming him. She thinks to herself that she didn't find any trace of demons during her first check, so it's strange that one has suddenly appeared now. The guard says the demons seem to be at least intermediate level. Those who could fight it did, but many got hurt. Emilone tells him to give her their location, so she can send reinforcements right away. Suddenly, Princess Ronella runs off, and Alio calls her back. Emilone follows Ronella, thinking that the princess wouldn't run off without a reason. She figures there must be some calculated plan behind it. Then, she smells blood. Princess Ronella tells Prince Casidra to hang on a bit longer, because Emilone will arrive soon, and they'll deal with the demon quickly. Casidra asks if she's the only one who can find him in this situation. Ronella asks who else would come to his aid. Casidra says his wound can be treated, so he tells her not to cry. Emilone is relieved that Prince Casidra can still talk, which means it's not as bad as it could be. She's walking towards them when an arrow grazes her. Princess Ronella tells her to focus on treating the prince. Emilone agrees and is amazed that the prince hasn't passed out yet. She starts treating him, but the wound isn't healing fast. Princess Ronella asks why it's taking so long. Emilone explains that the demon's poison is preventing the wounds from healing properly. She's done emergency treatment, but they need to get the poison out as soon as possible and suggests going back to the base for the right tools. Just then, she hears the demon growling. Prince Casidra tells Princess Ronella to stay back. Emilone tells both of them to move away, she'll protect them. She thinks to herself that the crown prince might be hit by poison that acts like acid. The demon has many wounds from fighting the knights, so it's tired and moving slowly. It's her first time facing a demon that isn't low level, so she feels nervous, but thinks she can handle it. The demon uses its tentacles to attack. Emilone can't take a hit like that, and she's lucky to dodge the attack just now. If the tentacles come from all sides, she'll be in trouble. She needs to find a way to deal a fatal blow quickly. She spots where to aim, and while the demon is still figuring out its target, she takes her chance and injects it with divine power. Prince Casidra asks Emilone if the demon is dead. She kicks the demon and confirms that it is. She was worried that the smell of blood might make the demon focus on him, but luckily, it didn't. Emilone tells him to get up and reaches out her hand. Princess Ronella offers to help him up too. Emilone notices that demon blood is on her hands, but the prince grabs her hand and says they should start moving. Emilone agrees and thinks to herself that it's odd. He should be comforting the princess, but instead, he's leaving her like this. Emilone hears coughing from a distance and realizes that there were others who fought alongside the crown prince. She stops Casidra and tells him there are injured people over there. Ronella stops her and says she needs to treat the prince first. Emilone thinks to herself that following these priorities makes sense, but she tells both of them to return to the base first. Another priest will handle the antidote treatment. The prince starts to speak, but the princess interrupts, saying they need to hurry back. She's in pain seeing him hurt and asks if he doesn't want to stop the pain. Emilone is impressed that the prince is still acting this way despite his condition. She hears voices and tells everyone to hurry back. Prince Casidra looks at her. Thanks to having several priests ready, things quickly get under control. Thankfully, no one died, and now it's just a matter of getting Prince Casidra to recover from the demon's poison. Emilone didn't expect to see Enesis talking to Ronella, asking her if she realizes what she has done. Ronella looks confused and asks why he's angry with her. Emilone wonders to herself how things ended up like this. Earlier that evening, Emilone tells Prince Casidra that the detoxification is finished and his wound has been treated. He might still feel some lingering pain from the poison, but it will go away naturally as he recovers. Princess Ronella asks if the saint's divine power can get rid of the remaining poison. Emilone explains that it's possible, but would be extremely painful, and as a saint, she can't make the crown prince pass out. The prince says it's okay, and asks if there's another method. Emilone thinks it might be helpful for him to visit the temple for a while. Sitting under the healing trees' shade will aid in his recovery. Saint Emilone understands why the royal family is concerned. They don't like being indebted to the temple. She thought Prince Casidra, being strong, would manage on his own, but now she sees otherwise. The prince says it will be fine, which surprises her. He asks if there's a problem, and she replies no. Emilone then suggests that Princess Ronella could help. The princess looks surprised, and Emilone explains that they need someone to look after him while he recovers. Since Ronella showed the most concern for him today, Emilone thinks she would be the perfect person for the job. The princess agrees, saying there's nothing more honorable than helping the prince recover. The prince thanks her, and Emilone adds that he should thank her, but the saint is there to help calm his mind and body while she's by his side. Emilone thinks to herself that while Princess Ronella is pretending, she's said everything she needed to. Emilone wonders if Ronella is trying to secure her place next to Prince Casidra. But the prince is a future emperor, and if Ronella marries him, she'll probably have to give up her harem. Maybe Ronella just plans to enjoy her time with the prince until she gets married. Emilone feels a bit disappointed thinking about it. Suddenly, Enesis walks in. Enesis calls out to Princess Ronella and asks if she understands what she's done. She asks what he means. Enesis questions why she went into a forest full of demons alone and unprepared, risking serious injury. Ronella says she couldn't just stay put while His Majesty was in danger. Enesis replies that it's a priest's job to rescue people. So why did she step in? Ronella says she knew the saint would follow her right away. Emilone wonders how things ended up like this. She tells Enesis that the prince is currently resting. Enesis apologizes to Prince Casidra for his bad behavior. The prince tells him it's all right and admits he was surprised when Ronella showed up. Emilone says that by her standards, the princess's actions aren't completely wrong. Ronella risked her life, facing her fear of demons to save the prince. For Enesis to be so angry, it means he must have been really worried about her safety and maybe even a bit jealous, because she was helping the prince. Meanwhile, Alio and Renee Ben are also upset. A guard tells Emilone that the prince's guards have arrived. She thanks him and tells Princess Ronella to take good care of Prince Casidra. The princess says she'd like to go back with her savior, Saint Emilone, if it's not too much trouble. Emilone is surprised and wonders why the princess doesn't want to stay with the prince. To her surprise, the princess insists, and Emilone is shocked, but sees how happy it makes Ronella. Princess Ronella and Saint Emilone get into the carriage. The princess says Emilone has worked so hard today, and her blessings are truly amazing. She says saving people is important, so the effort is no trouble at all. Ronella admits she knew she could have died if she went alone. She held onto a sliver of hope, prayed, and then Emilone showed up, looking like an angel for a moment. Emilone says it's her duty to help. Ronella explains that she was so flustered earlier that she didn't get a chance to thank Emilone properly. She is deeply grateful for Emilone's kindness, and says if Emilone ever needs help from the ducal house, she should call on her. Emilone thanks her. Emilone thinks to herself that the princess is putting on quite a show. If Ronella hadn't acted hostile towards her on her first day at the duke's house, Emilone might have believed this elaborate thank you was genuine. The princess then mentions that the reception will be cancelled since it's not the right time for a party. She says it's a shame, because she was really looking forward to it, especially since her brother was going to attend. Emilone says she heard about the party and understands why the princess is disappointed. She asks if the princess's brother is the heir of the Nestor Duchy, as all she knows is that he's studying abroad. Princess Ronella says her brother has finally finished his studies and is coming back home. She asks if Emilone would like to join them for a simple family dinner when he arrives. Emilone is surprised and asks if she really means it. The princess says they were planning a small dinner, and having Emilone there would make the day special, helping them forget about the cancelled reception. Emilone thinks to herself that since she already cleared her schedule for the reception, it should be okay. She says she doesn't think it would be appropriate for her to join a family event, but the princess insists it's fine. She adds that she and Enisis were planning to welcome her brother together, but now she's unsure if he'll come after the fight. Emilone thinks that if Enisis is as infatuated with Princess Ronella as he seems, he'll probably come, just to make up for things. She thanks the princess for the invitation and asks if Lord Renee Ben, the high priest who assists her, can come along too. The princess agrees and says it will be wonderful to have both of them. Emilone thinks to herself that the princess was so focused on Prince Casidra and Duke Enisis today that Renee Ben seemed quite upset. It would be amusing if he could use the dinner to win some favor with the princess. Princess Ronella asks Emilone if she knows that her brother is a mage. Suddenly, the carriage starts shaking and rattling. The door of the carriage swings open, and Emilone wonders why it's opening by itself. Princess Ronella closes her eyes. Emilone starts to worry that someone might have attacked them. The door creaks open further, and a man walks in, saying he found Princess Ronella. Emilone is really angry, and thinks to herself about who would dare to attack the temple carriage. The man comes inside and asks why Emilone is there. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and ensure to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time.